going to specifically focus on the closing of those receipt journal. Focus will be here, the closing of. Now, when we close them, let us quickly go through these transactions like last week, so that we can discuss down there about the closing of the transaction. When we close the transactions, or when we close the cash receipt journal, is when we add the totals. But before we can add those totals, we'll have to first do the transactions. So for instance, here, the owner Kamohelo Lakaja deposited 25,000 as capital contribution into the current account of the business. Issue receipt 01. As you know, receipt 01, it will go there under the document number. On the first day, Kamohelo Lakaja, 25,000, and then the money is transferred to the bank account, 25,000, and then to the sundry account, 25,000, and as capital contribution. You will see this one differs from the second one. I did that deliberately so. So the second transaction on the 3rd May, cash receipts for services rendered according to cash register roll 3,500. And then on this one, it's CRR cash register roll. And then the date was on the 3rd. Services rendered 3,500, and the money is transferred to the bank account 3,500, and then it's our current income, which is 3,500. And then on the 7th, Lakaje Kamohelo received the donation of 5,000 from his National Youth Development Agency funding to boost his cash flow of the business. So this one is 02. You recall that I said that because he started with 001, we'll continue with 002 like that. And then it was on the 7th, NYDA, National Youth Development Agency, 5,000. And then it transferred to the bank account 5,000. Because it is a donation, we don't have the column for donation yet. It goes to the sundry 5,000 donation. And then on the 10th, we received income from Pitley Rose for renting out part of the building, 1,800. And then is the 003. As I've said, we continue with the sequencing number. On the 10th, it was on the 10th, Pitley Rose, he was paying 1,800. And then the money is transferred to the sundry 1,800, which is rent income. The reason why here we didn't put this amount on the bank is because there are 2 transactions in one day. I will emphasize it when we get to the next example so that we can see. CRR services rendered 4,200. When we add this total, it will give you 6,000, and then we transfer this amount, which is 4,200 from here to here, and then the totals. Then we add the totals. Those totals, when we add them, give us 39,500, 7,700. We add them 31,800. Now, how do we close it off? When you close the account off, that's when you draw this line, and then you add this total. When adding this total, then you get this 39,500. This process, we call it, you close off the account. When it says close off account, it means that you must add all this amount on this column, except analysis of receipt. Grade 8, you don't add analysis of receipts. You only add bank account, current income, and the sundry account on the amount side. That is where you add those amounts. You don't add analysis of receipts. Just remember that. So that is how you close off the account. When the transaction says that close off the account, it means that you must add all this amount so that you can be able to get the total, which is like here, 39,500, 7,700, 31,800. Now let us go to the next example. This one, please pay attention because we are recapping on that previous one that I did with you. These are the transactions. Transaction of Sam Plumber, February 2021. Cash receipt journal of Sam Plumber, February 2021. Now, on the 3rd, Sam Molefe deposited 80,000 into the bank account as capital contribution. Issue receipt 001. As you know, receipt number, it will be 001 when on the 1st, and then the name we write here under details, Sam Molefe, and under analysis of receipt 80,000. Now pay attention. When you are here, you check as to whether is it only this transaction or is there any other transaction that follows this one that we have just recorded before you can transfer the amount to the bank account. Now it is the only amount here. It is only transaction here. So you draw the line here. Why do you draw the line? You draw the line to indicate that at the end of the day, this is the only amount which was transferred to the bank account, which is 80,000. And then it goes to the sundry account, which is 80,000. And then the total is capital contribution. Now let's look at the second transaction. On the 6th, cash received for services rendered, 12,400. CRR cash register roll when it was on the 6th, and then services rendered. And let's check 12,400. Now let's pay attention. Again, we check before we can transfer the amount to the bank account. We check as to whether is it the only transaction on this day. So indeed, it is the only transaction on this day. You draw the line here to indicate that it was only the transaction. When they close the day, this line indicate that at the end of the day, this was the amount which was transferred to the bank account, 12,400. And then it goes to the current income, 12,400. And then let's move to the next transaction. On the 10th, cash received for services rendered, 6,800. Cash register roll on the 10th. Rendered, 6,800 to the column of the bank account. What do? We record that one first so that we will add them together. 002, analysis of receipt, still the same. We don't write the day here. It is still the 10th, max electricity under the details, and then the amount 500. Here we do what? We add these two amounts, 6,800 plus 500. Then you close this. At the end of the day, we were only having these two transactions. That is the transaction that we ended up with. And then we transfer that amount to the bank account, 7,300. And then then we can distribute those amounts to where they're supposed to go. Like 6,800 is supposed to go to the current income, 500 is supposed to go to sundry account, 500 amount for what? Rent income. Now let's go do the last transaction. It was on the 18th, you know, services, cash received from services rendered is CRR under the document. When was it? On the 18th, and then services rendered, and then amount is 9,800. And then that is the only amount that we received on this day. And then we indicate with by drawing the line to make sure, to ensure that that was the only amount that we have received on that day. And then we transfer that amount to the bank account, which is 9,400. And then from there we transfer that amount. This amount was supposed to go to the current income here. It's just a mistake, and this mistake normally to happen. Learners tends to lose marks because of this. Now, after that, you draw the line. This line you indicate that you are going to close this cash receipt journal. When you close this cash receipt journal, what do? You add all this amount. You are going to add 80,000, 12,400, 7,300, 9,400, which will give us 109,900. We add all this, 19,200. Remember, I said there is supposed to be amount here, meaning 19,200 comes from where? Come from these two amounts. So if 9,400 was here, it should have been at least more than 19,200. So because 9,400 was not transferred here, that is why we have 19,200. But don't worry, it will be corrected in future. And then 80,000 here, 500 is 80,500. Now let's look briefly. How did we get this 109,900? We added 80,000, 12,400, 7,300, 9,400 give us 109,900. And then 19,200 we added 12,400, 6,800, and then we get 19,200. And then 80,500 we added 80,000 plus 500, we end up with 80,500. So that is the how actually that is how we close the cash receipt journal. Every time after reading the information, when they say close off the cash receipt journal, it means that you must write the totals after recording the transaction. So the purpose of these lessons today was to show you how do we close off the cash receipt journal. So by closing the cash receipt journal means that you add the totals on the column, except, very important, except the analysis of receipt. You don't close off or you don't add the analysis of receipt. Please make sure you remember that, because a lot of learners, they do add this total here under the analysis of receipt. So just know that analysis of receipt, we don't add the amount under the analysis of receipt. And that is that grade 8 for today's lessons. Your quiz will follow at the end of the presentation, will be posted. Thank you very much. That is the end of the presentation. Menier, that is the end of the presentation. I don't know, you can hear me. Yes, Menier, I'm done. Thank you very much, grade 8. Let's see each other next time.